Imagine for a moment that you are an archaeologist discovering an ancient supercomputer buried beneath the sands of time. You switch it on and you find that it contains the entire history of the universe, the coordinates of every star, and the blueprint for life itself. But when you ask the lead scientist about the code running this machine, he points to the screen and says, "See that? Only 3% of that code does anything. The other 97% is just garbage. It's leftovers. It is junk." You would call that scientist insane. You would say that nature, in her infinite efficiency, does not build a supercomputer only to fill 97% of its hard drive with useless noise. Yet, this is exactly what modern biology has told you about your own body for decades. They call it junk DNA. They teach it in schools. They write it in textbooks. They tell you that the vast majority of your genetic inheritance is evolutionary debris, a graveyard of dead viruses and broken genes. But consider this. What if the silence of that 97% is not emptiness, but a frequency you haven't learned to hear yet? What if the reason they cannot find the biological function is because its function is not biological at all, but hyperdimensional? The ancient Hermeticists believed the human body was a temple, a receiver of divine will. Today, we are going to prove that they were right, not with mythology, but with the suppressed physics of Itzhak Bentov and the frontiers of wave genetics. We are about to decode the bio-circuitry secret they hid from you. We are going to turn on the other 97% of the switch. Because once you understand what you are truly carrying inside yourselves, you will never look at a mirror or the sky the same way again. Before we unlock the genetic seal, if you are one of the few who suspect that you are more than just a biological accident, please click subscribe and turn on the bell. The signal is being broadcast right now. The question is, are you tuned in?
To understand why this secret has been kept, or rather ignored, we must first understand the lens through which modern science views the world. For the last 3 centuries, we have lived under the tyranny of materialism. This is the belief that matter is the only reality, and that consciousness is just a lucky side effect of chemical reactions in the brain. In this view, your DNA is nothing more than a protein printer. It has one job: to build the hardware of your body. When scientists first mapped the human genome, they were looking for the blueprints of the proteins that make up your muscles, your skin, your enzymes. They found them, but they only found them in 2 to 3% of the double helix. The rest did not code for proteins. It did not seem to do anything in the chemical sense. So, in their arrogance, they labeled it junk. It is the equivalent of a primitive man finding a smartphone, using it as a paperweight, and declaring that the microchip inside is useless because it doesn't help hold down the paper. But the ancients had a different model. From the emerald tablets of Thoth to the Vedic texts of India, the wise knew that the physical world is merely a condensed vibration of a higher reality. They knew that the word, sound, vibration, frequency came first and matter followed. As above, so below. If this is true, then your physical body must have a mechanism to receive instructions from the above. It must have an interface. This is the blind spot of the materialist. They are looking for a chemical factory, but the body is actually a quantum antenna. They're dissecting the radio to find the announcer inside the box. They will never find him there. The 97% of your DNA that they discarded is not a broken hard drive. It is a modem. It is waiting for a signal. And to understand how it receives that signal, we must turn to a man who bridged the gap between engineering and mysticism, Itzhak Bentov.
Itzhak Bentov was not a biologist. He was an inventor, a mechanical engineer, and a man who specialized in measuring the microscopic movements of the human body. While monks were meditating to find God, Bentov was hooking them up to ballistocardiographers to measure their vibrations. What he discovered shatters the materialist view of biology. He found that the human body is not a solid object. It is a vibrating system, a complex oscillator designed to tune into specific frequencies of the cosmos. Bentov discovered that when the body enters a state of deep relaxation, the heart-aorta system creates a rhythmic standing wave. The heart pumps, sending a pressure wave down the aorta. When this wave hits the bifurcation point in the lower abdomen, it bounces back. If the timing is perfect, what we call resonance, the two waves collide and amplify each other. This creates a massive oscillation that travels up the spine and literally vibrates the skull. Now, picture this. Your skull contains the brain, which is floating in cerebrospinal fluid. When these resonant waves hit the skull, they cause the fluid to oscillate. But here is the key. Nestled deep within that brain and body is the pituitary and pineal gland, and surrounding them are billions of neurons. But deeper still, inside every single cell of that brain and body is the DNA helix. DNA is a long, coiled molecule. In electrical engineering, a coil is an inductor. It interacts with electromagnetic fields. But DNA is not just a coil, it is a crystal. It is an aperiodic crystal. And like many crystals, such as the quartz in your watch, it has piezoelectric properties. This means that when you squeeze it or vibrate it, it produces an electric field. And conversely, when you expose it to an electric field, it vibrates. Do you see the picture Bentov was painting? When you enter a state of coherence through meditation, through love, through focused intent, you are mechanically vibrating your genetic structure. You are turning the coil of your DNA into an active antenna. You are generating an electromagnetic field that extends far beyond your skin. This is not poetry. This is the physics of a resonant circuit. Your DNA is a fractal antenna, capable of receiving and transmitting across multiple bands of frequency simultaneously. But what exactly is it receiving? And what happens when the signal comes through? This brings us to the concept of the bio-hologram. The 97% non-coding DNA is responsible for reading the electromagnetic fields of the environment and translating them into the physical structure of your body. It is the bridge between the quantum field, or what Bentov called the universal mind, and the 3D reality you inhabit. The coding DNA builds the bricks. The non-coding DNA, the antenna, holds the architectural blueprint which exists as a field of light and information. When you change the signal you are broadcasting, you change the blueprint. You literally rewrite the instructions for your own reality.
If Itzhak Bentov provided the theoretical physics,
It was the Russian biophysicist Dr. Peter Gurayev who provided the undeniable proof. While Western science was busy cutting and splicing genes like mechanics trying to fix a car engine, Gurayev and his team approached DNA as linguists and quantum physicists. What they found in the laboratories of Moscow should have revolutionized the world. Instead, it was largely ignored by the mainstream. Gurayev performed an experiment that is now legendary among those who know. He placed a sample of DNA in a quartz container and shined a mild laser through it. As expected, the DNA acted like a prism, diffracting the light into a complex pattern on the screen. But then, Gurayev did the unthinkable. He removed the DNA sample from the container. The quartz was now empty. By all laws of conventional physics, the light pattern on the screen should have disappeared instantly. But it didn't. The pattern remained. The laser continued to spiral and dance as if the DNA were still there. This phenomenon is known as the DNA phantom effect. It proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the physical molecule is merely an anchor. The real DNA is an energetic field, a structure of information that exists in the vacuum independent of the matter itself. The molecule attracts the field, but the field can exist without the molecule. Now imagine what this means for you. It means your physical body is constantly reading a blueprint that exists in the space around you. But how is this blueprint read? This brings us to the missing link that connects modern science with ancient ritual, the soliton wave. Gurayev discovered that the 97% junk DNA has a very specific structure. It allows for the propagation of what are called soliton waves. A soliton is a unique kind of wave that can travel for long distances without losing its shape or its energy. Think of a tsunami moving across the ocean. It is a massive, stable wall of energy. Gurayev found that these soliton waves travel along the DNA chain, reading the genetic nucleotides not just as chemicals, but as text. They read the grammar, the syntax, and the context of the genetic code. This is the revelation. The junk DNA is actually a complex linguistic text. It follows the same statistical rules as human language. This explains why for thousands of years mystics, monks, and shamans have used chanting, mantras, and specific tonal vibrations to heal the body. They were not just making soothing sounds, they were generating acoustic solitons. When a monk chants Om or recites a Gregorian chant, they're literally creating a stable sound wave that mimics the behavior of the solitons traveling on your DNA. They're literally speaking the language of the genome. They're inputting commands into the biocomputer. The ancients didn't need electron microscopes because they had the technology of consciousness. They understood that the word, the vibration, is what programs the clay.
If your DNA is a superconductor of divine information, and if your very structure is designed to interface with the infinite wisdom of the cosmos, then why do you feel so limited? Why do you feel stuck in the loop of repetitive thoughts, aging, and scarcity? Why is the antenna not picking up the signal? The answer is simple but uncomfortable. Your signal is being jammed. And in many cases, the jamming signal is coming from inside the house. Consider this. An antenna only works effectively when it is structurally sound and tuned to the right frequency. If you take a delicate radio receiver and smash it with a hammer or bury it in concrete, it will receive nothing but static. In the biological system, the hammer is stress. When you are in a state of fear, anxiety, or survival, what we call the fight or flight response, your body chemistry changes instantly. Biologically, stress hormones like cortisol flood your system. These chemicals have a specific function. They prepare you to run from a tiger. To do this, they shut down all non-essential systems. Digestion slows, the immune system pauses, and the higher functions of the brain, the pineal and pituitary interaction, are suppressed. But on a quantum level, something even more drastic happens. The DNA physically contracts. Research has shown that under stress, the DNA coil tightens. it becomes more rigid. Remember Bentov's oscillator? To resonate, the system must be relaxed. It must be flexible enough to vibrate. A rigid, tight system cannot oscillate. It cannot ring. When you live in chronic stress, worried about bills, the news, or the future, you are mechanically clamping down your own antenna. You are locking yourself in the 3D material frequency. But it is not just internal stress. We are bathing in a soup of artificial frequencies. The electromagnetic fields, EMFs, from our devices, Wi-Fi, and power grids operate at frequencies that are often dissonant to biological life. If your DNA is a sensitive receiver, think of these EMFs as a loud, chaotic noise drowning out the subtle whisper of the quantum field. You are trying to listen to a symphony while a jackhammer operates next to your ear. Furthermore, we must address the hardware itself. The pineal gland, often called the third eye, is the physical control center for this reception. It utilizes piezoelectric crystals, microcrystal calandrite, to transduce fields into images. In modern society, through fluoride in water, processed foods, and lack of sunlight, this gland becomes calcified. It literally turns to stone. A calcified antenna cannot vibrate. It is a brick. So here is the situation. You possess the most advanced technology in the universe written into every cell of your body, but it is operating in a hostile environment. It is clamped shut by fear, drowned out by electronic noise, and crusted over with toxins. The system is offline. But the good news is, it is not broken. It is merely dormant. And anything that is dormant can be awakened.
So how do we break the jam? How do we strip away the calcification, release the stress, and turn the dial of our DNA back to the universal station? We do not need expensive technology or pharmaceutical interventions. The tools required are intrinsic to your design. You have the hardware. You simply need the correct operating manual. The first key is returning to the physics of Itzhak Bentov, the micromotion. Remember, the antenna works best when it is oscillating in a standing wave. This requires a state of deep physical relaxation combined with a rhythmic biological process. Bentov called this the physio-kundalini syndrome, but we can simply call it resonance. To achieve this, you must master the art of the still point. When you breathe rhythmically and slow your heart rate, you align the pressure wave of your blood with the reflection wave from your lower body. When these waves synchronize, the body's micromotion increases in amplitude but decreases in frequency. You physically rock microscopically. At the peak of this oscillation, there is a moment of zero velocity, a moment of silence between the waves. In physics, this is where the magic happens. In that split second of stillness, your consciousness expands into the vacuum, the infinite field of information. By practicing deep, rhythmic breathing, like the box breath or the 7-4-8 technique, for just 15 minutes a day, you are not just relaxing. You are mechanically synchronizing your bio-oscillator. You are cleaning the lens of the antenna. The second key is the soliton generator, your voice. If Dr. Gurayev is right and DNA responds to language, then your internal monologue is the most powerful programming language you possess. Most people spend their days chanting a mantra of limitation. I am tired. I am sick. I am not enough. These are commands. Your DNA hears them, translates them into solitons,
and rewrites your cellular structure to match the command. You must consciously invert this process. You must speak to your body with authority. This is not wishful thinking. It is acoustic physics. When you speak an affirmation or a prayer out loud, use a resonant, deep tone. Feel the vibration in your chest. You are trying to create a stable acoustic wave that penetrates the cell wall. The ancient Gregorian chants, or Om chanting at 528 Hz, the frequency of repair, were designed precisely for this. They act as a carrier wave for intention. Start every morning by commanding your DNA. I am commanding my cells to regenerate. I am tuning in to the frequency of health and wisdom. It sounds simple, perhaps too simple for the skeptical mind. But remember, the software code that runs a supercomputer is just a series of zeros and ones. It is simple, but it builds worlds. Your words are the zeros and ones of your biological reality.
When you begin to practice this, when you clear the static and tune the receiver, something profound shifts in your understanding of reality. We have spent this entire time talking about DNA as an antenna, a receiver of information. But an antenna works both ways. A radio telescope listens to the stars, but a broadcast tower sends signals to them. You are not just a passive receiver of the cosmic signal. You are a transmitter. This leads us to the synthesis of Hermetic wisdom and Bentov's holographic universe. The universe is not a static place happening to you. It is a feedback loop. The bio-hologram that your DNA projects doesn't just shape your body, it interacts with the quantum field around you. The ancients said, as within, so without. Science now calls this quantum entanglement and epigenetics. When you change the frequency of your DNA, when you upgrade the software from fear to love, from junk to divine, you change the signal you are broadcasting into the matrix. And because the universe is holographic, where every part contains the whole, your shift in frequency ripples out and affects the entire structure. You are a node in the cosmic internet. If you are broadcasting a signal of victimhood, the universe reflects that signal back to you as your reality. But if you activate the junk DNA, if you turn on the high bandwidth connection to the universal mind, you begin to warp reality around you. Synchronicities increase. Answers appear before you ask the questions. Healing happens spontaneously. This is not a miracle. It is mechanics. It is the system working exactly as it was designed. The suppression of this knowledge was never about hiding a biological fact. It was about hiding your agency. If you believe you are just a bag of chemicals with 97% garbage DNA, you are powerless. You are a victim of your genes. But if you know you are a fractal antenna for the infinite, you become a co-creator. You become dangerous to a system that relies on your sleep. We are living in a time of great revealing. The seals are being broken, not by catastrophe, but by understanding. The science is catching up to the mystics. The junk is turning into gold. You are walking around with a library of Alexandria inside your blood. You carry the history of the stars and the map to the future coiled in the nucleus of your cells. The only thing missing was the key to unlock it. Now, you have that key. Stop looking for the truth solely in books, or screens, or teachers. Look inward. Listen to the silence between your heartbeats. Speak to the intelligence within you. The signal is strong. The channel is open. The question is no longer, is it real? The question is, what will you transmit? Thank you for journeying with us. If this message resonated with your code, verify the connection by hitting the like button and sharing this frequency with others. Until next time, remember,
You are not in the universe is in you.